The Galactic Senate was the most powerful place in the galaxy. It was where all the leaders of different alien races met to decide the future. The great chamber was filled with noise, flashing lights, and floating screens. Tall chairs shaped like thrones hovered in the air, each one holding a senator from a different world. The Emperor of the Galactic Empire, Lord Vorton, sat at the highest point, above all others. He wore golden armor and a long black cape. His face was cold and proud. Around him stood his royal guards, dressed in shining red, holding plasma spears. Suddenly, the huge doors at the end of the hall creaked open. Everyone turned. A man walked in, alone. He wore a long black coat. His face was hidden by the shadows of the hood. He didn't rush. He didn't look afraid. His boots echoed on the metal floor as he stepped forward, one slow step at a time. The guards near the door moved to stop him. They raised their weapons. Without speaking, the man raised his right hand. In a flash of blue light, the guards froze. Their bodies stiffened, eyes wide. They couldn't move. Gasps came from the crowd. A few senators stood up. Some shouted in their own languages. The Emperor raised a hand to silence the room. The noise stopped. Everyone watched the man. He kept walking, straight toward the center of the Senate floor. No one dared to stop him now. The Emperor narrowed his eyes. "Who dares walk into my Senate without permission?" His voice was deep and sharp. The man stopped. He pushed back his hood. His face was human. Pale skin, sharp eyes. The thin scar ran across his cheek. There was no fear in his expression, only calm. "I came for answers," the man said, "and for justice." A wave of confusion moved through the Senate. A few whispered among themselves. One alien with green scales spoke out loud, "It's he, human." Another replied, "But humans are gone, extinct." The man's eyes scanned the room. "You think that," he said, "because that's what they told you." He pointed at the Emperor. "He told you humans attacked first, that we were dangerous. But that was a lie." The Emperor laughed. "And you believe you can walk in here, alone, and change anything? You are nothing but the ghost of a dead race." The man slowly opened his coat. On his chest was a strange, glowing device. It looked like a small round plate, with symbols moving across its surface. The light from it changed colors, pulsing with energy. "I am the last human," the man said, "and I came to remind you why we were once feared." The lights in the chamber flickered. The ground beneath them shook lightly, as if something deep under the floor was powering up. The Emperor stood from his throne. His guards moved forward, ready to strike. But again, the man raised his hand. A wave of energy pulsed through the air. The guards' weapons sparked and died. They looked at each other in panic. Their armor began to lock up. "I'm not here to kill," the man said. "Not unless I must. I want the truth." The Emperor's smile faded. "Your world died because it needed to. It was the cost of peace." The man's voice rose. "Peace. You call burning our cities peace. You call wiping out an entire species peace." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small silver sphere. He threw it into the air. It floated and lit up, showing holograms around the room. The images were of Earth, burning skies, alien ships raining fire, children running, people screaming, cities turning to ash. Many senators looked away. Others stared in silence. The man pointed at the images. "This is what you did. You called us violent, but we only defended ourselves. We asked for peace. We begged for it. And you answered with fire." One senator, a tall being with 4 eyes, spoke softly. "I remember. I was young. But I remember the broadcasts. Earth asked for a treaty. We ignored them." The Emperor's face turned cold. "Enough. This is not a history lesson. It is an attack." "No," said the man. "It's a warning." He stepped forward. The floor lit up under his feet. The device on his chest glowed brighter. "30 years ago," he said, You bombed my world. I was a child. I watched my parents die. I ran into the hills. I found a cave where an old AI hidden by human scientists took me in. It taught me, trained me, helped me survive. For 30 years, I waited. I planned. Not for war, but for truth. The Emperor sneered. You think truth matters in power. I think it scares you, said the man. The lights flickered again. A few senators' screens began to change. Files opened, secret files. Orders signed by the Emperor. Plans for the invasion of Earth long before the war. Messages between alien generals talking about Earth's resources, how rich they were, how easy the planet would be to take. Some senators stood in shock. One shouted, "This was never about defense. This was theft." The Emperor shouted, "Do not listen to him. He's hacking your systems. I'm only showing what's already there," the man said. The energy in the room shifted. Some senators now looked at the Emperor with distrust. Others still held to loyalty. You dare challenge the order of the galaxy, the Emperor roared. The man's face was calm. I challenged the lies. Suddenly, the Emperor pressed a button on his throne. Emergency alarms screamed. The doors began to shut, but they stopped halfway and jammed. Sparks flew. I locked the systems the moment I walked in, said the man. Nothing leaves. Not yet. The Emperor's guards moved again, pulling new weapons from under their robes. The man's hand flashed. A field of blue energy stopped the blasts midair. The crowd gasped. I didn't come to fight, he said. But I will, if I must. A silence fell over the Senate. Everyone watched. No one moved. The man looked at the Emperor one last time. Tell them the truth. Tell them why you really destroyed my people. The Emperor stared at him. Blood rushed to his face. His fists clenched. I will not answer to a ghost, he said. Then I'll make you bleed the truth out, the man replied. The device on his chest pulsed faster. The floor began to shake harder now. Somewhere deep beneath, something powerful had been awakened. The senators looked around nervously. Some began to argue. Some began to side with the man. The chamber, once the center of power in the galaxy, had become a courtroom. One man alone stood before an empire, and they could not stop him. As he stepped closer to the Emperor, the lights above burst with sparks, and the galaxy held its breath. The room was still, the only sound the crackle of the broken lights above. Kale, the man who had walked into the Galactic Senate alone, stood in the middle of the chaos. The Emperor's face twisted with rage. His guards were still frozen, unable to move, their weapons useless. The senators watched in silence, unsure whether to side with Kale or follow the Emperor's orders. Kale stepped forward, never breaking his gaze from the Emperor. His voice was calm but filled with authority. You think I'm just a survivor of a lost world, don't you? A shadow of something that's gone. But you're wrong. I'm not just a survivor. I am the last of my people, and I came here to make sure you never forget what you did to Earth. The Emperor gritted his teeth. You're delusional. Earth was nothing. Just a small planet with a weak, primitive species. The galaxy is much bigger, much stronger. Cal's eyes flashed. That's exactly what you want everyone to believe. You want them to think humans were weak. You want them to think we were no threat. But you knew better. You feared us. And that's why you destroyed us. The Emperor's lips curled into a sneer. You're a fool. Humans were a problem, not because of strength, but because of your ideas. You were growing too fast. You wanted freedom, unity. You wanted to spread your rebellion across the galaxy. We couldn't allow that. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some senators exchanged looks, their doubts about the Emperor beginning to grow. Kel could see it in their eyes. They weren't all loyal to the Emperor anymore. The truth was starting to sink in. Kale clenched his fists. You don't get to hide behind your lies anymore. You don't get to decide who lives and who dies based on your fear. You killed billions of my people. You took everything from us. And for what? Power. Control. The Emperor's expression darkened. You're wrong. It was for the good of the galaxy. Earth was dangerous. You couldn't be trusted. Lies, Kel spat. You destroyed us to take what was ours. To make sure humans never had a chance to rise up. To make sure we never had the chance to show the galaxy what we were really capable of. The Emperor was silent for a moment, his anger rising. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, but I do, Kel replied, his voice growing stronger. I know exactly what happened. I was there, just like so many others, watching my family burn, my world burn. I saw the ships. I heard the screams. I watched as your forces wiped us out. You didn't do it because we were a threat. You did it because you were afraid of what we could become. Kel stepped forward again, this time closer to the Emperor. His voice was steady, but every word was sharp. And now I'm here, the last of my kind. And I'm not here to beg for your mercy. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness. I'm here for justice, for the truth. The Emperor stood tall, but Kel could see the uncertainty in his eyes. The Emperor had always relied on his power, on his fearsome reputation. But now, in the face of Kel's unwavering confidence, he seemed smaller, weaker. Justice. The Emperor scoffed. What do you think you can do? You're one man. You can't change anything. Kel's eyes narrowed. One man. You're wrong. One human can change everything. He turned toward the senators, his voice booming through the room. You all know the truth now. You saw the files. You heard the stories. This wasn't a war. This was a massacre. An attack on my people, because we had something you didn't want. Hope. Unity. The ability to rise against tyranny. And that's why you killed us. One of the senators, a large red-skinned alien with 2 horns, stepped forward. His voice was shaky. He's right. I remember the old broadcasts. We didn't attack Earth first. We were the ones who started the war. We wanted their resources. We wanted their land. And we took it. More murmurs filled the room. Some senators looked at each other, their loyalty to the Emperor beginning to fade. Kel could feel the shift in the air. The Emperor was losing control. His lies were crumbling. No, the Emperor shouted, his voice cracking. They were a threat. They were too strong, too dangerous. The galaxy would have fallen if we let them live. Kel shook his head. No, Emperor, the galaxy didn't fall because of us. It fell because of you. You wanted power. And you took it from the very people who could have helped you build something better. He turned back to face the Emperor. But that's over now. You can't hide behind your throne any longer. Your empire is built on lies, and the truth is coming for you. The Emperor stepped down from his throne, his fists clenched. You think you can defeat me. You think you can take me down. I am the Emperor. I control everything. You're nothing. Kel didn't flinch. He knew what the Emperor was trying to do. He was trying to intimidate him, trying to remind him of his power. But Kel wasn't afraid. He'd seen worse. He'd felt worse. He'd lost everything. And now he was standing before the most powerful man in the galaxy, demanding justice. I don't need to defeat you, Emperor, Kel said quietly. I just need to make you bleed the truth. Without warning, Kel activated the device on his chest. It hummed with energy, and a pulse of blue light shot out, striking the Emperor. For a moment, the Emperor's body froze. Then he stumbled back, his hand clutching his chest. The room gasped. What? What did you do? The Emperor gasped, his voice strained. Kel smiled coldly. I didn't come here to kill you, but I came to show you what real power is. The power of the truth, the power of the people. The Emperor staggered, his face pale. The Senate chamber was silent, all eyes on him. Kel stood tall, his heart pounding with the weight of what was happening. This was the moment. This was the turning point. The Emperor looked around the room, his eyes filled with fear. He was losing control. He was losing everything. The senators no longer saw him as the powerful emperor. They saw him for what he truly was, a liar, a murderer, a tyrant. Kel's voice rang out again, cutting through the silence. The truth is out now, and there's no going back. The Emperor took one last, desperate step forward. But he stumbled, falling to his knees. His golden armor gleamed under the lights, but it couldn't protect him from the weight of his own lies. The room was still. The Senate was no longer filled with the sound of fear or control. Now it was filled with the sound of something else. The sound of change. Kale looked around at the senators. This empire is finished. The galaxy deserves more than this, and the people deserve the truth. The silence in the Senate chamber was deafening. The Emperor, once a towering figure of power and fear, now knelt on the floor, his golden armor gleaming, but meaningless in the face of the truth. His face was pale, the strength he had once carried now gone, replaced with the cold realization that his lies had been exposed. Kale stood still, his eyes focused on the broken man before him. He had wanted justice, not destruction. But now, with the Emperor on his knees, Kale realized that this was only the beginning. The truth had been spoken, but the galaxy would need time to process it. Time to decide what to do with the Emperor and the empire built on his lies. Kale turned to the crowd of senators. Many of them were still staring in shock. Some looked guilty, others confused. But there was a shift in the room. Something had changed. The power that the Emperor had held over them was slipping away. It was clear now that the Empire was not the unstoppable force it had once seemed to be. It was built on lies, on manipulation, on fear. One senator, an alien with a slim, reptilian face, stepped forward. His voice was shaky but firm. The truth has been hidden for too long. The Emperor, he lied to us all. He told us that humans were a threat, but he never told us the full story. We never knew. We never understood. Kale nodded. That's because he didn't want you to understand. He didn't want you to know that Earth wasn't a threat. It was a treasure, a prize, and he wanted it all for himself. The room murmured. Some senators shook their heads in disbelief. Others whispered among themselves. The reptilian senator continued. But if that is true, then why did we follow him? Why did we let him do this? Kel's gaze hardened. Because you were afraid. Because he made you believe that the only way to survive was to destroy others. He made you believe that peace could only be built on control, on power. But that's not true. Peace comes from truth, from understanding, from unity. Another senator, a large armored creature with 6 arms, raised his voice. But he was the Emperor. He controlled everything. He told us what to think. He told us what to believe. We didn't question it. We thought we had no choice. You always had a choice, Kale said quietly. The truth was always there. It just took someone to show it to you. The Emperor, still on his knees, looked up at Kale, his eyes filled with a mixture of fury and fear. You think you've won. You think the galaxy will listen to you. I am the Emperor. I am the law. Without me, there is chaos. Kale stepped closer, his voice steady. No. Without you, there is freedom. For a moment, the room was completely still. The Emperor's words hung in the air, but Kale's truth cut through them like a blade. The senators were no longer afraid. They no longer saw the Emperor as their leader. They saw him for what he was, a man who had built his empire on lies, and now his reign was over. Kale turned to the senators again, his voice rising with conviction. You've been told lies for so long that you believe them. But the truth is simple. The human race wasn't a threat. We were a challenge. We believed in something different. We believed that no one should have the power to control others. We believed in freedom. And the Emperor feared that. The reptilian senator spoke again, his voice softer now. But what do we do now? The empire is in ruins. Without the emperor, we have no leadership. Cal's eyes darkened. You have leadership. You've always had it. The Senate was meant to lead. Not one man. Not a single emperor. It's time to return to what you were supposed to be. A council of equal voices. The people's voices. But the galaxy. Another senator began, but Cal interrupted. The galaxy is bigger than one man. Bigger than one empire. It's made up of billions of lives, each with their own stories, their own struggles. The people have the power, not the empire. The question is, will you allow them to have it? The silence grew deeper. The emperor was still kneeling, his face twisted in rage and disbelief. He had spent years building his empire, forcing everyone to obey him. And now, in the face of the truth, it was all falling apart. The senators were no longer looking at him with fear. They were looking at him with disgust. Cal turned away from the emperor, his voice rising again. The truth is out now, and there is no hiding it. The emperor's lies have poisoned the galaxy for far too long. It's time for something new. The room was filled with murmurs of agreement. Slowly, one by one, the senators began to stand. Some of them walked toward Cal, while others turned their attention back to the emperor, who was still on his knees, trying to regain his composure. Cal looked back at the emperor, his voice calm but firm. Your reign is over. The galaxy won't follow you anymore. They won't follow your lies. The emperor's eyes flickered with fear. You can't do this. You can't destroy everything I've built. Cal took a deep breath, his heart pounding with the weight of what he had just said. No, you destroyed it, not me. You destroyed it the moment you decided that truth didn't matter. He turned back to the senators. You have a choice now. You can continue to follow the emperor's lies, or you can join me in rebuilding something better, something that doesn't rely on fear, something that doesn't rely on one man's power. The galaxy belongs to the people. The senators exchanged looks, and one by one, they began to step forward. The emperor's empire was collapsing, and with it, his power. The room was filled with a new energy, a new hope. The truth had set them free. The reptilian senator spoke again, his voice trembling but filled with resolve. We will stand with you. We will rebuild the Senate. We will rebuild the galaxy together. Cal nodded, his eyes scanning the room. Then let's begin. The work won't be easy, but it's the only way forward. The emperor struggled to his feet, his face a mask of rage. You'll regret this, he snarled. Cal turned back to him. I don't think I will. With that, Cal turned away from the emperor, his eyes focused on the future. The Senate was beginning to change. The truth was spreading. And for the first time in a long time, the galaxy felt like it might have a chance at something better. The galaxy was never the same after that day in the Senate chamber. The emperor, once a godlike figure in the eyes of so many, was now nothing more than a broken man, clinging to the remnants of his empire. His power was slipping away, and with it, his control over the galaxy. Cal stood in the middle of the Senate hall, surrounded by those who had once been his enemies. The senators who had sat in fear under the emperor's rule now looked at him with respect, even admiration. They had seen the truth, and for the first time in years, they were beginning to understand the power of unity. The reptilian senator who had first spoken stepped forward, his voice steady. The emperor's lies are exposed. The galaxy will not stand for this tyranny any longer. We must act, or the people will never trust us again. Cal nodded, his eyes dark with determination. The people will never trust us if we continue to live in the shadows of the emperor's reign. We need to rebuild, from the ground up. A new Senate. A Senate that answers to the people, not to one man. Another senator, a human woman with sharp eyes and a strong voice, spoke up. And how do we convince the people that we're different? How do we show them that we aren't just another group of elites pretending to care? Cal's gaze turned toward the windows of the Senate chamber, looking out at the vast city below. The world outside was chaotic. There were riots in the streets, protests, and uprisings in every corner of the galaxy. The people were angry, afraid, and desperate for change. They had lost faith in the very institutions that were meant to protect them. The Emperor's lies had poisoned everything, and now it was up to them to undo the damage. "It won't be easy," Kale said quietly. "But the first step is honesty. We have to speak the truth, to show the people that we're not here to rule them. We're here to serve them. We must give them a voice." The human senator nodded. "And what about the Emperor? He's still alive. He'll never stop trying to regain control." Kale turned back to face her, his eyes hardening. "He'll try, but he won't succeed. The galaxy has seen what he is. A tyrant, a liar. He can't come back from this. His empire is crumbling." "But the people," another senator started, his voice hesitant. "They've been under his rule for so long. Won't they just want a new leader? Someone to take his place?" Kale shook his head. "The people don't need a new leader. They need freedom. They need a chance to rebuild, to decide their own futures. We need to trust them." The reptilian senator spoke again, his voice growing louder. "We must be the ones to lead them through this. We must show them that we are not like the Emperor. We must offer them something better." Kale's eyes narrowed. "And we will. But it starts with us. It starts here, in this Senate. If we are truly going to change the galaxy, we must start by changing ourselves." The room fell silent as the senators considered his words. There was fear in their eyes, but there was something else too. Hope. They had seen the Empire fall, and they had seen that the people were no longer afraid. It was the beginning of something new. In the days that followed, Kale worked tirelessly with the senators to create a new system of government. They met in secret, away from the prying eyes of the Empire's loyalists. They wrote new laws, laws that were built on transparency, equality, and justice. They began to communicate with the people, sending out messages of hope, letting them know that the galaxy was no longer controlled by a single man. It was controlled by the people. But even as they worked, the shadow of the Emperor loomed large. He had not given up. His supporters, though fewer now, still held power in some parts of the galaxy. His fleet, though weakened, still controlled many of the outer planets. There were whispers of a rebellion, of plans to retake the throne. Kale knew that they couldn't afford to wait. The longer they hesitated, the more time the Emperor would have to rally his forces. He couldn't let that happen. He had to act now. One night, as Kale walked through the quiet halls of the Senate building, a message arrived. A fleet of ships was moving toward the capital, a fleet under the Emperor's banner. His supporters had found a way to regroup, and they were coming to reclaim the throne. Kale didn't hesitate. He gathered the senators and their allies. They had to act fast. "We can't wait any longer," Kale said, his voice low but filled with urgency. "We need to take the fight to them. Now, the people are counting on us." The senators nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. It wasn't just a fight for power. It was a fight for the future of the galaxy. The battle for the capital was brutal. The Emperor's forces were strong, but they were disorganized, their morale shattered after the fall of the Emperor's reign. Kale and his allies fought side by side with the people of the galaxy. Humans, aliens, all united under a single cause. They fought not for power, but for freedom. The battle raged for hours, the sound of weapons fire and explosions echoing through the streets. Kale led the charge, his heart racing as he fought his way through the chaos. He could feel the weight of the moment, the lives of billions resting on the outcome. Finally, as the sun began to set, the battle reached its peak. The Emperor's forces were retreating, their will to fight gone. And then, in the heart of the city, Kale came face to face with the Emperor once more. The Emperor stood alone, surrounded by the wreckage of his forces. His golden armor was battered and scarred, his face twisted with hatred. "You think you've won," the Emperor spat. "This galaxy belongs to me. It always has." Kale stepped forward, his eyes filled with calm resolve. No, it never did. This galaxy belongs to the people, and it always will. Without another word, Kal raised his hand, signaling for the final blow. The Emperor fell, his reign ending with a single decisive moment. The battle was over. The Emperor was dead, his body lying in the streets of the capital, a symbol of the end of an era. The galaxy had finally broken free from his tyrannical rule. The people, once divided and fearful, now stood united, their hope rising like a new dawn. Kal stood amidst the wreckage, his heart pounding, not from the fight, but from the weight of what had just happened. The Emperor's empire was gone, but the work had only just begun. The real challenge was rebuilding. The real challenge was ensuring that the galaxy would never again fall under the rule of a single man. The senators, the ones who had once followed the Emperor, now stood beside Kal. Their faces were filled with determination. They had made their choice. They had chosen freedom. They had chosen to stand with the people. Kal turned to face them. The war is over, but the rebuilding has just begun. The galaxy is in our hands now. We have to make sure that the mistakes of the past are never repeated. The human senator who had spoken to him earlier stepped forward, her eyes filled with resolve. We can't do this alone. We need the people's trust. We need their support. Kal nodded. And we will earn it. We'll show them that the Senate is not a tool for control. It's a voice for the people, a voice for everyone, no matter their race, their background, or where they come from. One of the reptilian senators spoke, his voice steady. We need to start by spreading the truth. The people need to understand that this is their victory, not just ours. We didn't win this war alone. The people fought alongside us. They made it possible. Kal smiled, proud of how far they had come. The people are the key. We're nothing without them. They are the true strength of the galaxy. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. The Senate worked tirelessly to form a new government, one that would truly represent the will of the people. New laws were passed, laws that gave the people the right to vote, the right to speak, the right to choose their leaders. No longer would a single man or woman have the power to control the fate of the galaxy. It would be the people's voices that decided their future. But not everyone was pleased with the changes. The Emperor's loyalists, though weakened, still held some influence. Some of them had retreated to the outer planets, where they still controlled certain systems. They were not ready to give up on the empire that had once been so powerful. They whispered of revenge, of a new ruler who would rise and reclaim what had been lost. Kal knew that they couldn't afford to ignore these remnants of the old regime. If they did, they would be making the same mistake the Emperor had made. They would be underestimating the power of those who still clung to the past. One evening, as Kal stood on the balcony overlooking the city, the wind whipping through his hair, the human senator joined him. She stood silently for a moment before speaking. "The galaxy is changing," she said, her voice filled with hope. "But there's still so much to do." Kal nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "I know. The war is over, but the real work is just beginning. We have to rebuild trust, rebuild the galaxy. It won't happen overnight." "We can do it," she said, her voice filled with determination. "We have the people on our side, and they have us." Kal smiled, a rare moment of peace settling over him. "You're right. Together, we can do anything." The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. The new government began to take shape. The people's voices were finally heard, and with each passing day, the galaxy grew stronger. Slowly but surely, the old wounds of war began to heal. The galaxy, once ruled by fear, was now a place of hope, of possibility. But even as Kal worked to build a better future, he knew that the remnants of the old regime were still a threat. They would not go quietly. He had seen the lengths to which the Emperor's loyalists would go to maintain control. They were dangerous, and Kal knew that they would not stop until they had taken back what they believed was rightfully theirs. One day, Kale received word that the remnants of the Emperor's fleet had gathered on the outer rim. They were preparing for a final stand. Kale knew that they couldn't let this threat linger. They had to act, or the peace they had worked so hard to build would be shattered. He gathered his allies, the senators who had stood by him, and the people who had fought alongside him. They were ready for one final battle. The galaxy was not yet free, and Kale would not rest until it was. The battle was fierce. The remnants of the Emperor's fleet were well organized, but they were outnumbered and outmatched. Kale led the charge, his resolve stronger than ever. This time, there would be no mercy. The galaxy would not fall back into the hands of tyranny. This time, the people would win for good. As the battle raged on, Kale's fleet tore through the remnants of the Emperor's forces. Ships exploded in the sky, their debris falling like fire from the heavens. The final confrontation was fierce, but the people fought with a strength that could not be matched. The galaxy had already tasted freedom, and they would not give it up. Finally, after hours of fighting, the remnants of the old empire were defeated. The last of the Emperor's fleet was destroyed. The galaxy was free, once and for all. Kale stood in the control room of his ship, looking out at the vast expanse of space. The stars shone bright in the distance, a reminder of how far they had come. The war was over. The galaxy had won. The people have won, Kale whispered to himself, a sense of peace washing over him. This is their galaxy now. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The galaxy would never again fall under the rule of a single man. It would belong to the people. And with that, Kale knew that his work was done. The Emperor was gone. The galaxy was free. And the people would finally have the future they deserved.